Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go. Here you go.
Adrenaline. That's the Nothing Personal mute of the day. 4869. We've got this. It's Monday, 12/16/24. Adrenaline. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. I'm David Sampson. Welcome to another edition of, oh my God, did that happen on Sunday? Almost impossible to believe the things we're seeing during this NFL season as it is weeks away from coming to the conclusion of the regular season. We have some amazing baseball trades we have to get to, but I'm starting with adrenaline because adrenaline is the fuel that feeds any competitive athlete. Adrenaline, it's the fuel that feeds anybody who's not an athlete. Anytime you have the urge to flight or fight, anytime you feel this crazy wave come over you when you're driving a car and someone almost runs into you, or all of a sudden you doze off, which you never do and never should do. Adrenaline is that feeling, they call it pumping through your veins. We would tell our players, just wait for it. As a runner, we wait for it because adrenaline lets you cover up all sorts of ailments, mental ailments, physical ailments, impossible situations. When athletes speak about they're locked in, they're in the zone, adrenaline is everything. As an executive or as a trainer or as a coach, you have to be very careful. We try to create adrenaline with Toradol, which is a medication you give to players to get them ready to play, which masks pain. Because what stops adrenaline and what can cover adrenaline is when your body is saying you have a real injury. Something is wrong. Patrick Mahomes sprained his ankle. We'll get word today what happened. And Patrick Mahomes was pretty cool in saying, hey, I have adrenaline rolling. So usually it's the day after we're going to find out. And today is the Jason Robards day after, because the Chiefs are in the middle of the NFL collective bargaining agreement media deal. That seems like a weird thing. They're in the middle. Are they trying to get home field advantage through the playoffs? Yeah. Are they trying to go back to back to back? Yeah. But they're in the middle of that 3-game stretch where you play on Christmas Day, and then you play the Texans on the 21st, and then you played yesterday, the 15th. So in the span of 11 days, they've got 3 games. That's something that the NFL players have focused on, but they allowed to happen because of all the different media deals the NFL's doing. By trying to have games every single day, you're going to have stretches during the season. I remember Coca telling me that there were a bunch of teams that had these stretches. And then we spoke to Andrew Hawkins on Levitard on Friday, talking about the toll that football plays and takes on your body, and how Thursday night games are a nightmare, and generally multiple games quickly as you're older, really, it's untenable. So the Chiefs have a big decision to make, and I think it is the easiest decision around. The Chiefs have to decide whether or not Mahomes is going to play against the Texans on the 21st, or whether he'll play their Christmas game on the 25th. And it may be a low ankle sprain. It may be a high ankle sprain. You'll find out very quickly after an MRI, which you will get today, what kind of sprain it is. Remember, the NFL needs Patrick Mahomes to play on Netflix on the 25th. Netflix, this is their first year getting all those Christmas games with the great Mina Kimes and all the people doing the Netflix commentary. But if I am the Chiefs, And I know that I've got bigger fish to fry as I head into February in New Orleans. To me, there is no decision to be made here whatsoever. Patrick Mahomes cannot play the next 2 games. They are too close together. Forget not playing the 21st, which is a guarantee. But then if you're going to play the 25th, that's only giving him about 9 to 10 days rest. And I don't care what grade of ankle sprain they announce it to be. As you saw with Freddie Freeman during the World Series, you can hit a walk-off home run. You can have worse range at first base. You can win the MVP, and then you can get surgery. Football, a little different than baseball. Coca, let's go with the full wait to see on this. Wait to see when we tell you something's going to happen. I'm going to come out and say it. Patrick Mahomes does not play the next 2 games. Get ready, Netflix. It's Rudolph the Red-Nosed Carson Wentz who will be playing on Christmas Day. That was a big story. 2 other things happened at least yesterday that to me were far bigger. Let's talk about the Bills-Lions game. Let's talk about the season that Lamar Jackson is having as a Raven. The Ravens crushed the Giants. Coca got to enjoy himself, freezing his knickers off, trying to figure out whether it's worth it to go to a Giants game and then watch his Ravens crush. Watch Lamar Jackson put himself in position almost any other year to win yet another MVP. He's that good. Go pay attention to his stats. His ranking, touchdowns to interceptions, pretty amazing. He could end up with 1,000 yards rushing. Back in my day, 1,000 yards rushing was for the best running backs. But at plus 550, Lamar Jackson is the second favorite to win the MVP. Josh Allen is the runaway favorite at minus 900, according to the ads right now on DraftKings Sportsbook, to win the MVP. And he did it again. What a game against the Lions. In what many people are hoping and predicting is the Super Bowl preview. Those 2 teams as a rematch in the Super Bowl, it was a 48-42 Bills win, 1,000 yards of offense. Josh Allen locked up the MVP again. Just remarkable what he's doing, what they're doing. I certainly would be concerned if I were the Bills that their stadium's $1 billion over, but I'd also be concerned that their defense looks about as porous as Swiss cheese left outside a fridge for a month and a half. It looks a little green and a little powdery and white and still has holes in it. But what interested me most about the Bills-Lions game is what happened at the end. So at the end of the game, the Lions scored a touchdown. They're only down 6. They're going to do an onside kick. The new rule in football, if you're going to do an onside kick, you have to tell the other team because the new kickoff formation has the offense and defense, the kicking team and receiving team lined up way down the field, and the kicker is alone at the line of scrimmage. But if you tell the referee that you're doing an onside kick, then they form and line up like the old days. And onside kicks don't work. Well, the Lions executed this onside kick that was brilliant. And the first thing that you're taught as a receiving team, where you have the all-hands team on the line of scrimmage, you don't wait for the ball to come to you. You go forward, get that ball, get it on the right hop, and then go down. The Bills player waited. The ball got to him, and there was a pile and a scrum, the likes of which you don't see outside of a press conference for a president under indictment. You just never see it. I had an opportunity to speak one time, Coca. I went to a Dolphins training camp. Whatever, look at me, Louie. But I went as a guest when I was president of the Marlins. And what do you think my one question was when given the opportunity to speak to coaches and players? I was dying to know what happens at the bottom of fumbles. I didn't mention onside kicks because I remember it not occurring to me, but I wanted to know what kind of shenanigans are allowed when there's a fumble and then 10 players are jumping on the ground? And what I was told was Three Stooges like behavior is expected, encouraged, coached. Three Stooges like behavior is when you're at the bottom of a pile, you're poking out eyes, you're grabbing the nender parts. That's not really the word. The under parts. Yeah, the groin. You're using your hands, you're using your legs, spitting, screaming, anything you can do to get the ball. The scrum that happened with this onside kick. Now, the Lions had to try several of these to get back in the game late in the game, and the Bills recovered one of them and almost returned it for a touchdown, because you can do that if the bounce is so high and you take a running start as the receiving team. But in this case, the scrum was so big, and all I was picturing, because it took like 80 seconds to figure out who had the ball, and it was a huge thing because it's at the 50-yard line. If the Lions recover, they're down 6. They got 12 seconds to try to get into the end zone with 2 times out. They could tie the game and kick an extra point and win the damn game, which would have been insane. But after 80 seconds, the original Bills guy who had the ball to start ended up with the ball. What I want to do, and this is what I'm hopeful will happen, I want, the camera they have at the goal line inside the pylon? I want a little chip in the football because, A, I want to do that for spots, like on a running play, instead of having the referee saying, oh, this looks like a good spot. Oh, let's see if that's a first down. Forget it. I want exact technology. I want the ability for replay immediately to tell me where the spot is, to tell me where the ball is, to tell me who has the ball. I am fine with wiring everybody like you're in a Pixar movie. It's totally fine. Go look at the video of that if you're listening to this. And if you're watching this live, we don't have the video. What do you think? We have the rights to show highlights? Come on. Replay is needed. Replay is needed in a way. Football has it. They've got the challenge system. We don't do in baseball the throwing of the red flag. We talked about that inside a meeting once because the NFL, they make such a drama of a coach with the red flag hanging outside on his right buttocks cheek, and they pull it out and they throw it toward the referee to make sure everyone sees it. We experimented when we started with instant replay. We talked about, should we give the manager some sort of flag that they can throw onto the field? And I remember saying, as we met about this, we don't want this. Half the managers are former players who can't lift their arms. They don't throw BP anymore. They're not good at throwing. The other half would have such red arse that they'd want to throw it at the umpire. And our umpires are so sensitive, they wouldn't want that. Then we said, if you throw a flag in front of the dugout, it could look like a hot dog wrapper paper that flows around inside stadiums without a roof. We don't want that because then you can't discern what it is. So we came up with this totally asinine idea. Let's have the manager put his hands to his head. That'll be exciting for the fans. Put your hands to your ears and pretend that you're grabbing your headsets, which, of course, are not worn. They're worn by NFL coaches. They're not worn by MLB managers. But it's what the umpire puts on to speak to New York. Hey, go put your headset on. I was in favor of some sort of flare. Like, let's do some sort of indoor firework. Not the one that leads to a smoke delay, but something that would be fun for the fans. And not in the rundowns, Coca. But the other thing that I push for, so don't blame me, is full communication with the fans in attendance as to what the hell is going on with the sound system that works, so that watching on TV doesn't put you in such a better position where you say, hey, I don't need to go to the game. I don't even know what the hell's going on. Why was I even talking about the challenge system? Because of the refs. Let's talk about what the refs did in the Commanders-Saints game. And the reason I'm angry about this and I'm talking about this is that last week I was in Miami with Dan. By the way, if you speak to Dan today, all the Meadowlark employees listening to this, it's Dan's birthday. I told him last week that he's going full Lawrence Taylor, and he had no idea what I was talking about. And then he told me he doesn't know anybody's uniform numbers. Dan Levitard turns 56 today. Happy birthday. He is our co-founder, our president, our North Star of amazing content. Happy birthday, Dan. But being on his show, I took part in one of the things they do called the bucket of death, where you put your hand into a bucket where everybody puts their grimy, dirty, slimy hands in, and you pick out a team that you're going to have. I picked out the Saints, and it's not against the spread. It's straight up. I had the Saints straight up, and I was told, why would you take that? They're the biggest dogs of the week. Put it back. And I said, but if I put it back, I may end up with crap. I got the Saints winning the game against the Commanders, no problem. If I lose, I'll have to do truth or dare. I don't remember if I have to wear a costume, which I won't do, obviously, or I'll have to do something else. I'm not a costume guy. This is my costume: a blazer, a shirt, or a nothing personal polo. I'm thinking the Saints are going to win. They got a shot. They have a shot to score, and they're down 7. They've got the ball. Commanders miss a field goal. I feel like I got a shot here. And all of a sudden, there's a weird thing where the Saints score. They go for 2. Bless their soul, going for the win. I wanted them to go for the tie. That would have been my preference. Take my chances in overtime. Try to get the win. Instead, they go for the 2 and lose. And the Commanders win the game by a point. The biggest story of that game is that the referee, Ed Hochulai's son, admitted that the clock was accidentally stopped at the end of the game with 9 seconds left, totally irrationally and for no reason. The referees stopped the clock when the clock shouldn't have stopped. And the Saints had to quickly spike the ball, which they did. By the time they realized the clock should have been running and then started running again, they were able to spike the ball with 3 seconds left and score at the end with no time left and then go for 2 and lose. But the clock should have kept going. And at the end of the game, Hochulai met the pool reporter and said, listen, that's not a reviewable call. I was angry. Why not? Takes too much time. We don't have the time to get right a clock issue in a game where the clock matters more than any other single decision that is made in the game. When you are ruled by the clock rules. Nope. Absolutely not reviewable. So now I'm stuck as a bucket of death loser. Let's go, Pack. Let's switch gears and talk about a couple baseball things that I want to get through so you're informed on this Monday morning. A bunch of things happened during the weekend. A bunch of trades are going on. And what I was concerned about after the winter meetings is that there'd be a slowdown. There really has not been a slowdown at all, as a matter of fact. Teams are still putting themselves together. It is about to be Christmas week. This is the last week where there's major activity. Baseball tends to shut down between Christmas and New Year's and then start back up in earnest after the new year. There is a team in Sacramento called the Aths who signed the former Met, Luis Severino, to $67 million. And people were shocked that the Aths, were spending that kind of money. But then they made another trade. They acquired another pitcher. They called up Tampa and said, listen, we know you owe Jeffrey Springs a ton of money, like $10.5 million each year for the next 2 years. We know you're playing in Steinbrenner Field. We know that you have no reason to increase your payroll right now. You got to cut your payroll. And we're the Sacramento Aths, and we have to increase our payroll because, news alert, we're getting revenue sharing. For the first time in a long time, the A's franchise is getting a full share of revenue sharing, and their revenue is going to be so bad that they're going to get at least $70 million of revenue sharing. And you've got to spend 150% of your revenue sharing receipts on your major league product. So the Ats have to increase their payroll like crazy, like get it close to, if not over $100. So the A's are going around saying, let me find some players who are too expensive for some other low revenue teams, and let's pretend that we're a high revenue bully. Let's just do it. Just for S's and G's. I wonder if Fisher called Stu, the owner of the A's, called the owner of the Rays and said, listen, I'm sorry. I've had that happen where we've gotten fleeced on a trade because we really needed to trade a guy, and the owner would call and say, hey, just wanted to thank you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being in your market. The A's getting Jeffrey Springs is a great move for them. Springs, to me, goes ahead of Severino in the rotation. Springs is a better pitcher than Severino. It's not even close. Put Severino in the 2-hole. Put Springs as your opening day starter. Though, when you give $67 million to Severino and the free agent decided to come play in West Sacramento, you can bet your bottom donut that he's going to be the opening day starter. But the Athletics absolutely got some depth. The bigger trade of the weekend was what the Astros did. I don't know about you, but if I'm the Chicago Cubs and I'm looking to bring in a really good outfielder, hits for power, hits for average, hits from gap to gap, has a cannon as an arm, very, very, very few holes in his game, I want to do that. The Cubs have been saying they're trying to get better. After last year's nightmare as Craig Counsell's first year, you had to figure they were going to try to make a move. The Chicago Cubs traded for Kyle Tucker. I cannot believe that the Astros traded Kyle Tucker, except for the fact that he's going to be a free agent after this season. And except for the fact that the Astros window is closing, and except for the fact that they still have Alex Bregman pending as a free agent who they want to bring back. Did they make the decision that they'd rather pay Bregman than Tucker because Bregman's a part of the old guard and part of the dynasty for sure and going all the way back to 17? So let's keep it rolling with Bregman and his good friend Altuve. Still have Alvarez. Is that the decision? 30 GMs surveyed. Top one answer on the board. 3 years from now, would you rather have Kyle Tucker or Alex Bregman? Survey says Kyle Tucker. 30-0. Unanimous. Go ahead and find me online a GM other than Dana Brown if he signs Bregman. Find me one GM who would rather give Bregman money instead of Tucker. Did the Astros decide they wouldn't be able to pay him? It's an interesting trade for the Cubs. The trade analytics people have that as an overpay by the Cubs because Tucker could leave them in a year. But guess what? Isaac Paredes could leave after a year too. Now, of course, there were 2 other players in the deal, including Wisniewski, but the central point here is putting a guy like Tucker in your lineup in Chicago improve Chicago right now, which is what Ricketts wanted. He told Hoyer very simply, we are getting crushed. We are being looked at like a joke. The best thing we can do is try to overtake a Cardinal team that's finished, a Brewer team that's making a trade that we're going to talk about next. This should be our division to win. Hard stop. It's not like we're competing against anybody else in that division of note, are we? I love this trade for the Cubs. I really do. I'm not sure why people are so against it. Houston, without Tucker, hopefully, I assume they're getting Bregman. But there's also interest in Nolan Arenado. Nolan Arenado is a Cardinals third baseman, a Gold Glove third baseman. Joel Wolf is his agent. Used to be able to hit way better. Obviously has had a problem with the Cardinals. They have not succeeded with the Goldschmidt-Arenado iteration of their team, and they are trying to trade Arenado. Houston has expressed interest in getting Arenado even though he's got $74 million left. The only thing that I can think of is that the Astros, if they sign Bregman, in order to keep their payroll reasonable, which they have to do now, they're going to have the Cardinals spend money to pay down Arenado. I guess that's how you do it, because he's got a no trade clause. So you give money to Arenado, then you give money to the Astros, and then you send him to the Astros, and you end up getting rid of Arenado, but you haven't really saved the full freight. So are you better off if you're St. Louis? These are the decisions that we have to make when you are running a team, that sometimes you pay money to send players away because it is making your team better. If you think about what teams are doing and you're thinking about your assets, one of the interesting parts about this time of year is that you are looking at your team. Let's just take the Cubs, for example. When they have an opportunity to trade for Kyle Tucker, they understand that they're going to have to overpay to get him, even though he only has 1 year left of control. One of the currencies, one of the great currencies that exists for a team is its draft picks. There's a rule in baseball that you can't trade a draft pick until he has been drafted and out for a year. So he's got to be in your organization for a year. There is that used to be a rule that made it impossible for us to draft guys that we drafted, let's say, in the first round the previous year. And so what teams would do is they would trade for a player to be named later, and that player was this draft pick from the previous draft. But it created such problems for the team because you had to negotiate with the other team. Well, what if that player gets hurt? You've already traded him to us, but he's playing for you. And if he gets hurt, then we have to come up with a list of different names. And enough GMs got together with enough owners and the commissioner's office that it became more reasonable and accepted. And there was a rule change, Coca. And I'm having a Monday issue right now. I am 99% sure, and now I'm blanking, which means I'm obviously not 99. Coca, can you check it? In the last CBA, which is the current CBA, did the rule change that you're allowed to trade drafted players before they've been on your team for a full year? I could have sworn that they changed that rule. If I'm wrong, we'll correct it. We're a live show. I'm not going to stop, but I think that's true because one of the players traded by the Cubs is a guy named Cam Smith, who was their first pick from the 24 draft. He was picked at 14th overall. And in theory, he should not be allowed to be traded under the old rule till June of 25. My guess is that rule change that we all wanted actually happened, and I don't know why I'm forgetting about it. But having the ability to trade picks, it's a fascinating discussion when you're in a trade discussion with another team, because what you're really doing is getting into the value of drafted players, and you're really getting into the analytics of it all, because you don't have a big enough sample size at the big league level, at the minor league level. You only have a year. And in most cases, when you're drafted in June of 24, maybe you'll play a little bit toward the end of the minor league season, but it's really not a big enough sample size to know that that player will be anything other than a 50-50 proposition, which is what all drafted players are. Yet, when you are willing to trade and are able to trade a first-round pick from the previous year, that becomes hugely important to a team to receive it, because they get to tell their owner, look at the value of that player we're getting. That guy would have gotten a $4 million signing bonus only 8 months ago, 10 months ago. And look, 4 months ago, we now have taken that into our system without having to pay the cash. It is the greatest example of where we put a dollar amount on a player. Because now, of course, when you're looking at trades, there are these websites that talk about expected value of trades and players and who overpaid and who got value, etc. The value of a previous year's first round pick, woo, off the board. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to review a movie that is getting a lot of controversial attention. And then we're going to talk about a Yankees trade that is going to end up being a hugely important one for the New York Yankees. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. We are coming at you live on the Nothing Personal with David Sampson YouTube channel. Or, of course, you can watch us on the DraftKings Network. It's 10:30 a.m. around if you are. And we will be leading right up into the birthday boy, Dan LeBatard, who will be doing his show at 11 o'clock on the DraftKings Network. Or live at 9 o'clock on his YouTube channel, which is different than my YouTube channel because he doesn't own my YouTube channel. I got a great present. We did Hanukkah early, Coca. For those of you not watching, you're not going to see this, but if you are watching, then I'm showing you a black box that I got for Hanukkah from my girlfriend, Coca. It is the coolest box ever. Now, it's just a black box, but what's in it is amazing. This is called the Year of Movie Dates. There are 50 cards in here that you open up, one each week, and you don't know what's in them. And when you open them, you watch that movie that week. And you're supposed to watch it with your girlfriend, like a date. But for me, I mean, I could do that, but I got a better way, Coca. We're going to open one card per week, every week, starting in January. So all year. And I will watch the movie that's in the card and then review it. So I'm just showing you, like, there's a purple envelope right here, and you open the envelope, and let's just see. I'm going to cheat right now and just see for fun what this would have been. The Shawshank Redemption. I get to watch that again. All right, I'm going to put that back in. Isn't that a cool present? It's called So Let's Get Started. Why should we wait? Life is for living, so choose a date. Now, this doesn't seem to come with a date. I guess that is sold separately. A Year of Dates, movie night edition. I watched a movie yesterday in the midst of all of the insanity that was my weekend. Someone tell me why you won't watch The Apprentice starring Sebastian Stan and Maria Bakalova. She was the one in Borat. Are you upset because you've had enough of Trump, or you don't want to see a biopic of Trump? How about watching a performance of two people nominated for Golden Globes? Sebastian Stan has a really good chance of being nominated for an acting Oscar. His performance is Trump, and this is back in the 70s. Jeremy Strong was nominated, you know him from Succession, playing the lawyer Roy Cohn, who in very many ways may have made Trump Trump, because the way this movie portrays Trump, and it's not entirely untrue, he was not exactly the person he is now, for better or for worse. You can sort of see his backstory, his provenance, how he became who he is, whether you agree with him or not. Let's not become a country where we'll only see movies about things that we agree with and aren't willing to learn about things we're not. Let's not become a country where we're such an echo chamber and we're so far on the edges that we can't even recognize art when there's art. The movie The Apprentice is art. It is filmed in like 70s, in a 70s way. It's a period piece. But the performance by Sebastian Stan as he transforms into the Trump that you see today, it's magic. It is movie magic. Brilliance. Jeremy Strong playing a lawyer who gives all lawyers a bad name. All lawyers a bad name. But that said, the performance, and I have to read, Coca, why his co-star in Succession, who played the father, I want to say Jeremy Strong is the one in the movie, but they play the father. Is it Brian Cox? But I feel like that's the linebacker for the Bears, but maybe that's his name. How quickly I forget. He criticized Jeremy Strong in his acting. It is Brian Cox. Go watch this movie, please. All right, let's talk about the Yankees. The Yankees did not get Juan Soto. They went right into getting Max Fried, and they are doubling down, bless their soul. They lost Clay Holmes to the Mets, who was their back-of-game reliever, except he was a terrible closer, so much so that he's now going to be a starter for the Mets. The Yankees had a closer named Luke Weaver, who was well above average. What the Yankees decided to do is something that I could not possibly disagree more. Building your bullpen in the offseason doesn't work. I've done it. I've signed free agents as closers. I've tried it all. The way your bullpen gets built, go look at Luke Weaver. He wasn't even a kernel of a thought when spring training started. And then he became their closer in the World Series. So, the Yankees, desperate to let you know that they don't need another bat, instead, they're not going to give up 8 runs a game. They call up the Brewers and they say, you guys trade players and still win divisions. You traded Corbin Burns. You traded Josh Hader. You guys keep making the playoffs. Are you going to trade Devin Williams? He's only a year away. He's expensive. I assume that you're going to trade him, right? He's been hurt. And the Brewers are like, well, what will you give us? And the Yankees said, you want a starter? I bet you need a starter. How about Nasty Nestor? And the Brewers like, that's not really good enough. Devin Williams is an elite closer. Nestor Cortez is a middle to bottom of the rotation pitcher. All right, we'll give you money to help cover the salary of Nestor, and we'll take the salary of Devin, so we'll give you cash. How about that, Milwaukee? Well, we're always good for some cash, but no, not good enough. All right, what do you need? This is how trade discussions really happen. We're going to need Caleb Durbin. No, you're not. You're not taking Caleb Durbin. Caleb Durbin is one of the great utility young players. He can play 10 different positions on the field. He's got speed that would make Eric Reed cry. There's a shout out to people who have no idea who Eric Reed is. How about this? He's got speed that would make Peter Bergeron weep. That may not be good enough. All right, how about this? He's got speed that would make Kareem Hunt smile. I don't know why I thought of him as the first football player. Who's that really fast guy on the Bills right now? The running back. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's go back to Caleb Durbin. The Yankees said no. We're not trading you the guy who was a breakout star in the Arizona Fall League. We're not trading you a guy who has 6 years of control left. He's about to be a big leaguer. He actually is our coverage when we pay these big free agents and we need performing rookies. We need Caleb Durbin on our team. And the Brewers said, no problem. No deal. Brian Cashman folded like the discount rack at Nordstrom's and included Caleb Durbin in the deal. The Brewers get Nestor, they get money, and they get Caleb Durbin, and they give up a reliever in Devin Williams. Don't get me wrong, he's good. But don't get me wrong, you never, ever let a reliever get in the way of a starter, even one who's mediocre, and a potential all-star position player. The negative, of course, is Caleb Durbin is my size. 1 inch taller. But guess what? So is Altuve. Nothing personal pick of the day. We needed to go undefeated this weekend, and we came close. We had the Lakers plus 8.5 Friday night with no LeBron. They lost by 10. So close. We tried to make up for it on Saturday with the Emirates semifinal parlay. The Bucks and Thunder are in the Emirates Cup final tomorrow night, which means they both won their semifinal game, which means we won the parlay and you got some positive payoff. Knowledge in your head and money in your pocket, at least for that one. And then we had the Bills plus 2.5 over the Lions. That's a win. We are now 169 and 179. A little schedule update. We have live shows this entire week. So there are 5 days of shows, including today. Then for the next 2 weeks, we have amazing sit-downs for you. I mean, sit-downs that you are going to be interested in. They are compelling. They are interesting. They are timely. I am honored to have the sit-downs to present to you that I have. You will be entertained. But the point is, I got to give you 2 picks a day for the next 5 days and get them all right just to get back to 500. And I have a wait to see from a long time ago in 2024 that I'd finish the season at 500. So let's start with 2 picks today. Let's start with the 2 Monday night games. We've got the Falcons playing and the Vikings. The Falcons are favored and the Vikings are favored. So I'm doing something weird today because I need some plus money. I'm buying a point. I'm going full Stugotz. We're buying the Falcons down to 4.5 current lines, DraftKings. We're buying the Vikings down to 6 current line, DraftKings, subject to change. And then we're taking them at a parlay. And we're getting plus 199 current. We're also taking the over in the Bears-Vikings. I'm not fighting against Sam Darnold anymore. The way I see Sam Darnold playing, I assume it can't happen. It's done. It's done. Every week I tell you it can't be. Well, I tell myself because we don't talk about it much on Nothing Personal. Meanwhile, the Vikings are inching closer to an unbelievable season. I mean, it feels like a first-round loss in the playoffs, but you never know. So we're taking the Bears-Vikings over 44, and we're taking the Falcons-Vikings buying a point, minus 4.5, minus 6 in the money line parlay. And let me tell you, we've got to win them both. Coca, can we please go to the Twins now? Something came out about the Minnesota Twins. Do you remember the owner of the Suns? Do you remember Bob Sarver? And he had all those issues. He was basically had a culture of abuse and harassment, and he was forced to sell. There were races. I mean, it was just a nightmare. Sarver sold to this guy, Matt Ishbia. Matt Ishbia buys the Suns immediately, like trades for Kevin Durant, spends money like drunken sailors, makes the Suns some sort of hated team, behemoth, and then the Suns don't win. Remember that? He fired Monty Williams, the whole package. Word came out yesterday. Matt Ishbia has a brother, also a billionaire. They're partners in their company. Remember the story we gave you about Ishbia's company? Remember the story that Pablo Torre finds out did about Ishbia's company? Well, it turns out that Ishbia has a brother named Justin. He's a minority owner in the Suns. He's the brother of Matt Ishbia. And guess what he wants to do? Wait for it. He wants to buy the Minnesota Twins. Interesting. You'd say to yourself, why would he want to buy the Minnesota Twins? Well, they're in that area, their company, but that's not important. The Twins are a mid to low payroll team. The Twins have an amazing ownership, the Pohlad family. Do you know in 1999 and 2000, Carl Pohlad was the richest owner in Major League Baseball, and yet the Twins had a low payroll, and they were the ones being considered for contraction or relocation? So for all you fans who say, I just want the richest owner around, I grant you that Steve Cohen is irrational and an irrational actor, but just having the richest owner in terms of net worth does not guarantee that the behavior will reflect and will manifest in out of this orbit payroll and a team that loses money. But baseball and the 30 owners minus the Pohlad family, because they'll still get a vote, but I'm not counting them. They're going to look at this Ishbia buying the Twins, and they're going to say, are we really going to have another Steve Cohen in our game? We're going to bring in a totally lunatic owner who's going to not care about losing money, who's going to maybe compete with either Glenn Taylor if he wins the arbitration or A-Rod if he wins the arbitration and is the new owner of the T-Wolves, and try to completely outspend them to win over Minnesotans. Why are we going to approve letting Ishbia be one of us? Then Rob Manfred, the commissioner of the game, will speak to the other owners, and he will say, just FYI, at a low number, we're not letting in Justin Ishbia. But if Justin Ishbia is willing to pay $1.8 or $1.9 million for the Minnesota Twins, and we can show some sort of asset valuation increase that we can say is because of the TV deals, because of the health of the sport, because of the demographics of the sport, We're going to try to get the votes. We need Ishbia. And yes, we'll have an American League Steve Cohn. But believe me, you're all going to be happy because your teams are worth more. I don't think it's going to be enough. I do not think that even that rationalization will give Justin Ishbia the votes to be approved. It was hard to get Steve Cohn approved. It was a favor to Fred Wilpon, as he deserved one, and Jeff. And it was a number that was good, not perfect, but damn good. And it allowed the Mets to keep their regional sports network, which at the time really mattered. But at the end of the day, the way Steve Cohn has acted does not make other owners happy. And they're going into a collective bargaining agreement, a negotiation. I do not think that baseball wants a Justin Ishbia type person involved when there is bargaining coming up. It is going to be a fascinating story to watch, because one of the things that we really need, is we need baseball to be as healthy as the other sports. We need those asset prices to go up. Now, if Ishbia offers 2+, I would say, screw it all, take the deal. I want to close today with something that happened. I want to go back to football. I'm going to make a plea. I'm going to beg. I don't know if you watched the Colts Broncos game. Did you see that another player was about to score but dropped the football while celebrating at the goal line, and it wasn't a touchdown? The Colts, who needed the game to try to make the playoffs, were about to go up 20-7 on the Broncos and then got crushed after that and ended up losing 31-13. Basically got outscored 24-0 from that point. I'm going to try a different approach because we've done this on the show. There have been numerous examples of football players getting to the goal line and not scoring because they dropped the ball. I don't mean fumble. I don't mean that a defender runs upon them or an offensive player if it's an interception. I'm not talking about where it's a race to the goal line and there's a fumble because you get tackled, you punch the ball out, you poke the ball out. I'm talking when a player is untouched. Nobody near him. He's looking left. He's looking right. He's looking up. He's looking down. He holds the ball up. He starts doing the moon dance, the sky dance, the sun dance. He holds the ball out to show the other players, look at me. Drops it like a microphone. How long are we doing it? So here's my fix. I got a rule change if I'm the owners, and it's a pretty simple one. If there is no defender within 10 yards of a player who's about to score, and that player drops the ball prior to breaking the plane of the end zone, the opposing team, the defensive team, gets the touchdown and the ball. So the team that's about to score not only doesn't get 7 points, but the other team gets 7 points and gets the ball like it's a safety. A safety, you get 2 points in the ball. I'm saying this is so egregious that I want it to be 7 points in the ball. And the reason I want the owners to vote for this is that if the players realize that they can cost their team a playoff spot, like the Colts now, who are likely going to miss the playoffs because Jonathan Taylor is so infuriatingly outrageous. If you cost your team 7 points, which is really 14 points because instead of you scoring 7, the other team gets 7, and then it may even be 21 points because you don't score 7, the other team gets 7 automatically and gets the ball, and they could score another 7. That could be a 21-point difference. I think it's the only way. As I was thinking about the show today, Coca, I was thinking, let's make it money. If a player fumbles on the goal line with no player within 10 yards, they get fined 50 grand, 150 grand. Let's make it hurt. Nah, we're going to make it the team loses 21 points, possibly 14 guaranteed. And then we will have the pressure so far from coaches and teammates that no player will do it again. They will run through the end zone with the ball. They actually will hold on to the ball through the celebration. They won't even spike the ball. We have to make it so that disappears from the sport. It is a disgrace, and it makes everyone look and feel so badly. It can impact wagers. It can impact what a team works for all year, like it did with the Colts. Now, do I think that there's a likelihood this can get passed? I think owners are going to say, oh my God, we can't do it. The union will say, forget about it. Why? Because I don't think players will learn. And I'll say, do it. And by the way, it should be a $100,000 fine. That's right, Jonathan. It's just business. See you tomorrow. This is nothing personal.